I don't even have a computer. Let's kick things off with one of the oddest SpongeBob related clips you're ever likely to stumble upon. What does the title suggest to you? SpongeBob whining about a computer? That'd be incorrect. SpongeBob doesn't say that wanting a computer, but pleading to be let go when being accused of watching inappropriate kid stuff. Basically, child pornography. This is a clip that comes from the Saturday TV Funhouse segment of NBC's Saturday Night Live, a section of the show that featured what the Saturday Night Live host would announce as a cartoon by Robert Smigel between the host segments, followed by a short parody of various educational films and cartoons. This one is from the 67th Funhouse episode that appeared in the middle of the 14th episode of season 28 of Saturday Night Live. That was on Miss Dynamite on March 8, 2003. The recurring superhero sketch from the series called Ex-Presidents appear in the short named Iraq 2003, in which the members of the superhero group
George Bush, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford
plan to make their own little cartoon on Iraq after being influenced from the pro-war clips like the controversial Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips and a Grape Ape cartoon which promoted the invasion of Grenada. They ask none other than SpongeBob to act for it, but midway SpongeBob stops to accept that he isn't comfortable doing it as it seems a bit racist to him, which is, by the way, Tom Kenny voicing it all, mind you. When SpongeBob goes on questioning the script, he gets countered by the director, and when he's about to leave, this happens.
I declare code yellow. Hold him for questioning. Check his hard drive for child.
I don't even have a computer.
That's it. That's why the entry is here, I guess. Yeah, after this, well, the pop of girls come in to save SpongeBob, which by the way doesn't go so well either, but those few seconds
I don't even have a computer.
are why we've assembled here for now. SpongeBob being accused of watching child pornography while being voiced by Tom Kenny. I also learned about the apparent fact that this is the shot because of which Tom Kenny was banned from voicing SpongeBob outside of the show, which is bizarre. And when it comes to the accusation of SpongeBob being into all that stuff, well, that of course can't be true.
Gary! I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
Okay, well, Bikini Bottom's production control room and regulatory houses need some inspection, it seems.
Well, why don't you replace it yourself?
Stephan Hillenberg's views on ships. Stephan Hillenberg seemed to have a clear vision about what he wanted SpongeBob SquarePants to become and remain without ever losing the essence. We got an idea about that already by now, as in the very first year itself, we saw how he apparently wanted to stay away from any spin-offs. Contaminating the nature of the characters in the show wasn't what he was after in any way. And similarly, he seemed to be also particular about shipping and all, which is basically a fan-forced romance between two characters in a show or movie or series, where it's not originally shown, but to the followers it seems like a hell of an idea. And then they're like, they didn't give it to us, so we're gonna make it. Like a love relationship. Shipping, you see. It's one of the terms in the glossary of fandom jargon, fan speak, so to speak. And then this sort of became a thing of its own, especially in these internet times, of course, where nobody can stop such fan lore, plots being cooked up and romance being dreamt of by the fans, and so it all finds its own way to come out. To the point that now we as fans, thanks to social media, have this sort of superpower to make the show whatever we want, all through such theories or fan art, and see the permuted version of a show altered to our desires, kind of like a fully customizable food order. But regardless of the fan theories and what certain sources might say, Steve wasn't into it all that much. His idea for the show was pretty clear from the very start, as it seems as he thought that such things might mess up with the basic flavor of the series for him. As a filmmaker, he knew that each character had a purpose in the series which he didn't want to play around with. Everything is in SpongeBob's head after SpongeBob. You might have watched me talking about various Pokemon fan theories on this channel, because there are a bunch of weird ones. One eerie one which I haven't talked about in here yet on a long video but mentioned in a short one I guess, is that all of the show is in Ash's own thoughts. Nothing is really taking place, relating that to no one ever aging, Ash forgetting things about his past, so on and so forth. It's not a Pokemon video, I know, but that was a convenient example there in order to explain how sometimes a fan theory happens to be solving a lot many issues with the series in question. So somebody applied that same in-the-head logic to SpongeBob as well, with clever reasoning. You see, in the season 5 episode Spongehenge that we talked about in the first year itself, we found out how in the end the Bikini Bottom is no more when SpongeBob eventually manages to return to it, somehow saving itself from the jellyfishes. As per which there can't be more of SpongeBob adventures in Bikini Bottom. Yeah, there shouldn't be more episodes then. That should be the end. The show should not just continue as nothing happened, unless the show is showing some flashback or something that's just happening in the dream, because that's what this theory is saying. The show actually did end as it was apparently planned to be, like we discussed, and everything that happened and is still happening after that is just in the thoughts of SpongeBob. SpongeBob is simply dreaming of the good times and imagining the sweet life sitting somewhere in his wasted and forsaken undertown that once saw the sponges, shenanigans and laughter day in and night out.
Feeling it.
Whatever we've been seeing after Spongehenge episode, it's all in SpongeBob's head. And we are in SpongeBob's head watching all that's inside SpongeBob's head. Is that why it's been a little spongy in here? So it must be all thoughts now. That's quite depressing. Don't worry, it's just another theory. Even if it's not a forced one and has sprouted out of an actual episode where the makers themselves showed us how Bikini Bottom is all gone, it is still possible that the producers of the show can come back one day and say that this in-the-head theory is just... But until then, and just in case it is not, we must agree that SpongeBob is still quite optimistic, imagining all these fun thoughts in a dark and done place that once was a happy and happening Bikini Bottom.
Security system takes control.
Guy rages at SpongeBob episode. As the title suggests, this is about a guy who raged at SpongeBob in a YouTube video. He raged so hard that it eventually became a meme. The original video by Geek Ultimatum Network is privated now, so can't really show you that, sorry. But hey, it didn't become a meme until the Bubble Poppin' Boys made a review video about it. But even that is privated now, so can't even show you that as well, I'm sorry. But anyways, that review was when internet caught wind of it, and when the words you see on the screen right now received their re-edits, reposts of sorts in various forms, and it turned out to be exploitable enough to most of all in the community. Let me take you through the backstory a little here. In the original video, Geek Ultimatum Network talks about the season 5 episode Good Neighbors as part of his list of worst SpongeBob episodes, and somehow for this episode he happens to go real hard on it, saying how he hates that episode for being so unfair for Squidward, and well, somehow audience just got stuck with it. One wouldn't have guessed that, right? Yeah, because it's really one of the examples of such a meme that drifts much far away from the source which brought that very media into existence. Just like Wang mentions in his NEDM video.
Its journey would lead to a meme that became so disconnected from the source material that some people have no idea about its grim origins.
Fans may not remember it being about Good Neighbors. They may not even recall Geek Ultimatum Network or even Bubble Poppin' Boys for that matter. But legacy lives on in form of these unforgettable lines that received the treatment that they did.
Security system takes control of Squidward's house and begins attacking the city, leaving the mayor to give Squidward community service for the damage he caused, even though SpongeBob and Patrick were in his house the whole time and were responsible for everything. Yeah! This episode.
So, yeah.
You actually recognized us this time.
Patrick's parents change. We all love Patrick, right? Yeah, ever wanted to meet his parents? Well, if you did, then you would have to meet not 2 but 4 people. Okay, don't get me wrong, I said that cause these 2 definitely are not them. This is Patrick's parents' design from the show. We got a glimpse at them back in Tier 3 while discussing his family tree. And this right here, friends, is their design in the Patrick Star show. Why is that, you might wonder? Just like the Twitter account CartoonFan18 did and asked Vincent Waller about it, to which he got this response from him. Cecil and Bunny, they are his mom and dad. We felt the original iterations of the characters, while they worked for that episode, they were boring as characters. They were not entertaining or fun. These 2 are so much more fun, I can't wait till you get to meet them. So unlike in the case of King Neptune or Princess Mindy, the reason is no firewall or anything, but simply that the makers found the design a bit boring. Despite it being a better or worse choice, some fans do also care about the reason for the redesign. They do find it nice to have a show-related logic behind things that change so drastically, rather than the reason flatly being that the design was not good enough in someone's opinion. Some, on the other hand, seem to take it all easy with the whole thing, not worrying much about the reasoning behind every twist and turn in the show. So, yeah. Porn parody. Yeah, we should expect all this now, I guess. Let's talk about it. I'm sure if you made it this far, you'd have an idea of what we're talking about here. Or at least I hope that it's nothing new to you how there exists porn parodies of popular media in adult industry, so long as the show or series in question is known well enough. For SpongeBob, the one I found mentioned more often than not is a parody known as SpongeBob Square Nuts. So yeah. What? That's all? I mean, you want me to review it for you now? Go suit yourself if you wish to. So, it's a 2013 video directed by Leroy Myers, cast including SpongeBob SquarePants, played by Anthony Rossano, and Sandy, of course, played by Raylene Joy. Yeah, so okay, can we move on now? Let's.
Interesting.
Patrick has a foot fetish. This is a theory where Patrick is deemed to have a foot fetish. One episode we can tell it from was featured in the very first tale itself, in which a snip of an episode from season 6 called The Splinter was shown, where the pus out of SpongeBob's injured thumb showers all over Mr. Krabs. Before that, Dr. Patrick, yes, Dr. Patrick, two words that just sound so wrong when said together, comes for the rescue. Oh god. Trying to help SpongeBob Splinter, mostly just grossing the audience out. In fact, that's what Mr. Enter was talking about in this entry from last year.
There is no reason for this episode to exist, other than nausea fuel.
One thing he does in this episode, though, for a few seconds is this.
Interesting.
Looks like Patrick's got it bad if he's got it. But this theory hasn't just got this one foot to stand on, pun intended. There is another one, way back from the season 2 episode, the Fry Cook Games. During the final challenge of the 21st annual Fry Cook Games,
Fun wrestling.
Patrick apparently uses one of his special moves, which is, let's watch.
This is personal.
Now some say it's mainly cause that was SpongeBob's weakness, some hold it for a reason to use in this theory, some say that was way back in 2002, so foot fetish reference, no way, those times were innocent. Some say foot fetish has been around forever, so once again, as always, it's what you make of it. If you ask me, well, I can still buy Patrick using it as one of his moves in the Fry Cook Games, but what was the reason for Patrick to do this to SpongeBob's foot in the Splinter episode when the Splinter was in SpongeBob's right hand thumb?
I didn't realize you were a doctor. Stayed on me, cookie dough.
Patchy is insane. You see, in a crazy show like SpongeBob, it's not uncommon to come across some crazy characters. And sometimes not just crazy looking or crazy acting, also really crazy, which as per this theory is the case with Patchy. Yeah, this pirate guy, who's one of the supporting characters in the show. Well, quite boldly, the OP of this hypothesis states that Patchy is delusional and dreamy and dead. And also that his pet parrot Potty doesn't even exist. Yeah, right, it would be best, I guess, if I just read this thing out. Here we go. In my theory, I believe or think that all episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants could all be played out in Patchy the Pirate's head. You all know Patchy the Pirate, a man dressed in a pirate out, wishing one day to meet SpongeBob in person. But what if in reality he's just more of a lonely man in some sort of world he created? Sure, you might ask, how would that all possibly work out? I think there could be a few disabilities from him, but I'll talk more about that later. Do you remember all the times he's been on the show with excitement as he enters and how he talks about his desperate need to meet SpongeBob? Well, what if he actually is just making up this sponge character to calm him down? You've seen him become angry towards his parrot a lot, or if nothing goes right, that could be a possibility of him in a mental crazy state. He could have made SpongeBob and all of the other characters in his head to keep him somewhat sane, Remember the SpongeBob Christmas episode of season 2? Do you also remember one of the very last scenes with Patchy in it, with the ship hat and with SpongeBob and Patrick on the ship? He was telling a story as they were in it. So what if he actually plays out all episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants as puppet shows for his entertainment? In shows where he is in it, he's always the one telling the story. Everything could be all in his head. Okay, now think back to the episode where he actually was in a professional place and had celebrities there. Do you remember the part where he became angry or crazy when SpongeBob didn't appear on stage to greet the excited pirate? Because that's all in his head. The scene where he goes underwater and finally meets SpongeBob is the scene in reality when he actually dies. He died from a possibility of drowning, knowing in most episodes where he doesn't even touch water or leave his house. He could have never had swimming lessons or even felt the ocean water between his fingers, because it could be a situation where his parents in his childhood never took him anywhere close to water. You all might ask, but how is he still alive in other episodes? I actually have a few reasons. My first reason is that all of the episodes is in no specific order. In most, or all, don't yell at me if I'm incorrect, episodes, there is usually a problem but is quickly solved around the end of the 15 minutes or the end of the episode. My second reason is that there could be a big circumstance that he thinks he's still alive. One of the more recent episodes is a SpongeBob Christmas. He's not in human form. Yeah, I know all of the characters were in clay form and not their animated cartoon style they usually are. But he could be thinking he's still alive and roaming. Think of it from that episode. First off, he's at the North Pole and isn't wearing a lot or any big coats or heavy boots to keep him from the cold. Yes, he does say that he's cold and hungry throughout the episode, but it could be him trying to still believe he's alive. He also says he's hungry, but I don't recall Ghost ever eating like human ever. Secondly, as he hits the fork in the road, literally, he tumbles and swirls around, falling and eventually hits the ground, still in the car. Surely he should be dead, but he even says that he, surprisingly, has not scratches on him. That's because he's already dead. I like this cherry on top in the comment below. That's all dope and dark, but looks out of place in this video. I mean, we just talked about SpongeBob being in SpongeBob's head, and now it's inside Patchy's head as well. Interesting.
We'll get you a date.
Mr. Krabs is a sugar daddy. This is a theory which, as the name suggests that Mr. Krabs, the owner of Krabby Patty, is also the sugar daddy of Pearl. And just like many theories, I understand this may sound too dumb to at first, but moving on just for the sake of it, let's see what it is after all about. Because hey, it's SpongeBob SquarePants, the show in which we got to see this. So could this as well really be? Is it possible? I mean, since anything else, this must be too. And there are points that support and oppose this thing presented by people who are in favor and against this theory, respectively. Let us go over the main points that make them think the way they think. Mr. Krabs indeed has plenty of cash to spare to be able to be Pearl's sugar daddy. Mr. Krabs also has plenty of penny pinching that would keep him from dispensing that spare cash like that. Pearl calls Mr. Krabs daddy, which might mean sugar daddy and not daddy. It indeed is just daddy and we're just in mood to make things up. Pearl sure likes to spend a lot of money and keep asking for it from Mr. Krabs. Well, Pearl just likes to shop like all teenagers and she simply asks for money from Mr. Krabs for him being his father. We don't see Mr. Krabs related to any other female other than the dates he's been to with Mrs. Puff, so he might be just that. But then, why Mr. Krabs wanted someone to go along with Pearl to the prom? Mr. Krabs is old enough to be called a sugar daddy. Pearl is too young to have one. So yeah, what do you think?
I'll take you. It's the voice of Plankton.
Victorious, the 2010 sitcom, has an episode where this paparazzi thinks that Erwin Sikowitz, played by Eric Langa, is the voice of Plankton. Of course, that's not true. Plankton is voiced by Doug Lawrence. But let's check this out.
Whoa! It's the voice of Plankton!
Some fans say that they also heard a lot of Plankton in his voice even before this episode aired, presenting it as a joke, which kind of further confused some fans into it. But well, audience eventually understood that it's just a coincidence and the character Erwin just sounded a lot like Plankton. Nonetheless, this was interesting.
I am not the...
The scene is funny too,
Get a shot of Plankton with Tori.
especially when Erwin plays along.
Aaron, I must have the secret formula for the Krabby Patty. I bared my soul to you.
SpongeBob Adult Party. Remember Ren and Stimpy from the 1991 The Ren and Stimpy Show? Then you might also know about the adult-themed 2-season revival animated series on it from 2003, Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon, which was
Oh yes, that's so good.
an adult-themed series. Okay, why is that important? Well, there was a plan of having the same kind of thing for SpongeBob back in 2003, a suggestion that had come from Spike TV, which Stephan Hillenberg had to provide a refusal for, and so it never happened. In fact, Ren and Stimpy has been the only cartoon that received such an adult spin-off. It just tickles me to imagine what all limits that show would have crossed had it been made. This Iceberg would have had a few more entries, that's for sure.
This is gold in the form of...
Chum ingredients. Chum ingredients. Ingredients of chum. First of all, chum, by the way, is the main ingredient in almost every item that Plankton decides to keep in his restaurant called the Chum Bucket. Yeah, the restaurant really justifies the name there. Now one might wonder, what is the ingredient of this signature ingredient? Is it the same that it is in our real world, which fishermen use as a bait for fishes, which is just more fishes? Yeah, that seems to be the case with Plankton's chum as well, as we can kinda sorta see at times in the series. But for some reason, the chum that is a successful bait in our real life seems to attract no customer in Bikini Bottom. So that's questionable. But since their world has many a time proved to be working in a different way than ours, like in the last entry of the previous tier, then, well, we shouldn't be surprised. And so if that chum, just like our chum, is made up of fishes, where does Plankton get it from? Ever since first appearing in the season 5 episode Friend or Foe, this has been a constant query from the fans. Although much like Krabby Patty, the main ingredient of chum is a mystery, the show has been kind enough to have the audience in on a few of the other ingredients. Like in the season 3 episode Spongicus, we get to know that it has
some jellyfish squeezings, whale blubber, seahorse snout, and a sprinkle of anchorite.
And in the season 9 episode Jailbreak,
Cultured fungus growth, medium.
Basically an old sock.
Subtropical vegetal matter.
In other words, a banana peel.
Organic filler.
A bucket of trash.
Hey you, come here. Blow. Live bacterial culture.
A recently used napkin. I understand this might be getting unbearably pathetic. Let's quickly finish it off by mentioning that Plankton puts these ingredients in a prison toilet, shuts the lid, flushes it, in order to mix them all together. It wasn't until season 6 episode Krabby Chronicle when the authorities find out that the chum is made up of fish, which results in the Plankton's chum bucket getting shut out. This finally reveals how Plankton had been getting the Bikini Bottom citizens to engage into indirect cannibalism without their knowledge of it. But is that all there is to it? Or something more going on which we don't get to see, yet it's seeing us? As a matter of fact, going back to Friend or Foe, a pinch of chum was originally a part of the burger recipe that Plankton made as a kid along with Mr. Krabs when they were friends. That's in fact where things started falling apart between both of them, as that burger, which originally had chum in it, poisoned the old man Jenkins, resulting into Mr. Krabs and Plankton to accuse each other of the contamination that caused the poisoning, and that's how friends turn into foes. You see how it goes? Mr. Krabs presumably got rid of chum from his Krabby Patty recipe. Plankton, on the other hand, kept the chum and came up with... yeah. Well, going by how things are working out for them, maybe we know what caused the Krabby Patty prototype burger to be poisonous. Again raising the question on the contents of this thing called chum, making it about as intriguing of a mystery as the Krabby Patty.
Tell Sandy I love her.
Tell Sandy I love her. To end this tear up and tear up the script, here's an interesting little bit. Remember we talked about Stephan Hillenberg not being into shipping and all much. Additionally, it's been said that he particularly made clear that SpongeBob and Sandy are just good friends, with no love-related interest between them. As perhaps he might have noticed that Sandy, being one of SpongeBob's best friends and being a female, could be linked with SpongeBob in such a way. So he just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that it's all platonic there. There were some angles he just wanted to stay clear of. But once in a while, fans come across things that make them imagine things, stuff that fuel this fan fiction a bit, like in the SpongeBob mobile game, No, we don't see both SpongeBob and Sandy together, but get to hear this special message of SpongeBob as he dies.
Tell Sandy I love her.
What more would a sponge shipper want?
Tell Sandy I love her.
He's probably saying that in an innocent, friendly way, but
Tell Sandy I love her.
we can do with that.
Tell Sandy I love her.
I mean, you can't top that, right? Well, we'll answer that as we enter tier 6, because for this one, this is it. Appreciate you sitting through it. Cheers.
Tell Sandy I love her.